Okay, welcome everybody. Greetings. Good morning. This is Christopher from our hometown. I'm going to be leading today's Block Editor Basics webinar on creating text layouts. I'm not going to jump fully in quite yet. I'm going to give just another moment or two for some others to join us. While we are doing that, if you want to find the chat and maybe let us know, we kind of like to do this at the beginning of each of these webinars just to get a sense of where things are with you guys and some of your familiarity with with using the block editor. Like, let's put one, maybe you've never touched the block editor, you've maybe even never heard of it, and 10, maybe you use it for the majority of your content management, that kind of thing. But and let's see, I've got a few more coming in, so I will actually go ahead and put up our overview slide. So while you guys are checking things out, maybe dropping your answer to that 1 to 10 poll. What we're going to be doing today is going over, I know this list looks a little long, but these are all basically blocks that are aimed at handling text. So we've got our headings and paragraphs, which are your normal building blocks, your lists. These are the three that you're going to run into pretty much anytime you're working with text in the block editor. And then we'll look into some of the more kind of layout focused text blocks. So putting things in a table, setting things out as a quote or a pull quote with some fun little layout options. The details block I wasn't really familiar with. Christina with a 6, very nice. That's competence level, quite impressive. Good to hear. So the details block is one you may not have seen before. It's kind of like a little mini accordion where you've got like a summary and you can click on the summary and it reveals some details that are hidden beneath that. So I'll definitely be showing that off. And then a couple in the second column that are not necessarily like text, but that we're going to run into a lot when we're working with text. And that's if you want to create some separation between sections. So in addition to maybe using a heading as a separator, you can actually use these. So basically, it's what creates those horizontal lines that you may often see that are added to HTML articles. The spacer, of course, just creates space between items. We'll delve into buttons a little bit. They're basically blocks that hold text that is the label for the button, and then you assign them links and stuff like that. But there are some fun, cool things that it kind of operates a little bit like the list block, and we'll get into more of that. I did want to touch on the fact that there actually is a classic editor block, and which basically is a single block that gives you all of the toolbar options for the class that you're used to in the classic editor, but it gives you within a single block that can then be integrated in all these other things we've been demonstrating in the block editor. Then we're going to look at really briefly just the custom HTML block, which for the most part, unless if you got an engineer on staff that wants to build something really cool using just HTML and you just want to be able to kind of like drop it in, this is the block you would use. And this is also the block if there's not a specific embed, like there's blocks for YouTube embeds and Twitter or X now. But if it's something like we were tracking down a Bible verse of the day for a customer, and it's just a simple, code snippet that you need to drop in, and this is a good place where the custom HTML would come in very handy. So, all right, without further ado, let's move on to our first topic. So we're going to just move through these in order, and if you have any questions or anything, just pipe up real quick, and I'll address those as they come in. So let's take a look. We're going to talk about first, actually, all of these blocks. The other reason I'm grouping a lot of these blocks together is they share a lot of custom settings and options. So let's take a look at this. So many of the text blocks have these same, over in the side panel, they'll have these same options here. And I think this will be even more helpful if we come over and let's add a heading block right here in my working document. And as you see here, the heading block has options for color and typography. And let's see, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. See if hopefully this will be big enough on the stream. There's this little 3-dot menu over here next to typography, and this gives you toggles for a bunch of cool extra settings. So like if you wanted to, let's actually grab a title here. I was going to be playing around with some 20th century novels as placeholder material. So you can actually just come in here and do things with the letter case without having to retype it. This is helpful if you're, copying in or something. You just want to make everything all caps. You can use some of the default, these are the theme-based sizes. So if you want to make your text super big, or this little icon here, if you click on that, it will actually let you specify the pixel size directly if you'd like. And then you can come back and just pick one of the presets again. Appearance, this is basically the weight. So instead of like over here in just the floating toolbar, you just have your bold on and off. If you actually come over here into the typography settings and make sure you have the appearance toggled on, you get access to a whole extra range of weights. So if you want something that's not quite as bold, you want to create some different layers or decoration for that, you can do that. And then you can even do, this is a little less useful, but you can even put some letter spacing if you want. So put extra pixels right in between the letters. It can be for a really stylish kind of title. And then here we've also got our underlines and strike throughs and things like that. So so those are the shared typography. So if we add a paragraph block here, not a page break, a paragraph. Actually, I don't even need it. This already is a paragraph block. Sorry, that's why I need to bring my list over. I'm trying to add a paragraph to a paragraph. Sorry about that. So yeah, here's a paragraph block already. And as you see, these are basically exactly the same. So the color panel and the typography panel, under the typography, you get those same toggles and things like that. And then under color, basically this is, we'll come back to the heading. Um, the background can be either a solid color, or you can even come through here and add gradients, and you can basically move the colors around. You can even add extra colors if you want to go kind of really weird here. So like we can make this kind of a dark gradient background, and then we come back over here to the text, make sure that's white, and now just through those two little setting changes there, you can make something that stands out quite impressively. The other thing I wanted to show here is once again, this is the three dot menu for color, it's the same as the three dot menu for the typography. Anything that's been set will have a reset button next to it. So let's say back up here in the color, we wanted to actually just reset this back to default. You just click reset, and it goes right back to whatever the default is, which, so your headings will be taken care of by the theme of the website itself. All right, let's take a look. So, and yeah, now let's take a look at the floating toolbar that you get with these. So as I mentioned, you get these text decorations, but let's move left to right. The first icon on your floating toolbar is going to be your transform. We've talked a little bit about that in the past, but certain blocks can easily be transformed into other blocks. And we'll talk a little bit more about that once I get through kind of some of the basics here. You can drag with this six dot, or you can use the arrows to move it up. Specifically for the heading, it has levels, so we'll talk more about that in a minute. But all of the text blocks have similar alignment options. And then it's got the same decorations. This is just basic bold and basic italic. And of course, you need to select the text for these two to work there. And then you can also add a link to either a single word, or you click and assign a link to the entire phrase. Under the three dot menu, you've got some of your extra options for copying, duplicating. If you want to add a specific block before or after, these are also going to be common to most blocks, not necessarily the text blocks per se. But one thing that also is common is this little scroll down is for basically, these are more decorations that are used less often. So if you wanted to use a subscript or something funky like that, let's even see, change this to a superscript, and you see it moves the baseline up. So if you were doing some some math in there. I guess you could do some fun with that. One thing I will note here is, and we'll maybe cover this a bit more, but there's the inline image option is very fun here. So if we select inline image, what this is going to do, this is not going to create an image block or in a heading block. But if you do an inline image, it's going to basically just slip an image in, gives you the same media library. I'm actually going to go grab an appropriate, this is, not sure if you can see this. This is the little OHT house logo, a little small version of it. Oops. And I'm going to use that as an example. So as I made this like 64 pics or something like that. So it's something that would kind of fit when you're talking about inline text. It's going to be shown in line with the text, and you'll see how that works as I select this. So as you see, it actually basically acts as a big letter. So if you can, let's say, type on the other end of it, it flows right in there. What I would use this most often for is, let's say you wanted to kind of, let's center align this and get rid of the extra text. And then if you're basically have your caret right before the inline image and you do shift enter instead of regular enter, it won't create a new paragraph. It's just going to create a line break, and check what happens. It just pops the image as still part of the heading. See, if I move this up and down, this is still part of the heading. Actually, I'll even put a background on there so you can see it even more clearly. So you can see the heading is this big red block, and the inline image is just living here as kind of just a piece, almost like a piece of text. And so I'll show you, once you click on this, you can't use it like it's an image or anything. All you can kind of do is adjust the size ever so slightly based upon what it's doing. And it's basically going to have a baseline at the bottom of the text, kind of like that. And so just doing a little shift enter there will let you censor that in the bottom, and it kind of makes it kind of fun to use. Maybe we can look at some other ways of using the inline images, but this is just one that I thought was pretty fun to look at. All right, let's see if I have covered that part. Yeah, I made a little heading block with a graphic. Okay, so let me make sure I've covered everything else with the heading block. I believe so. We basically just have the text color, text background, and these typography settings. And then the one thing that sets the heading block apart from the other blocks is that you can set the meaning of the heading, the emphasis. Is this a big heading or a little heading, a top heading or a child heading, that kind of thing. And those can be addressed differently in the theme, so it's very helpful to use those to delineate levels of meaning, the semantic meaning in your content. All right, so let's take a look. And basically, the paragraph block, we've kind of already seen this, but I'll go ahead and I'm going to just grab a paragraph out of this Wikipedia article. And I pasted it without any formatting. So I pasted it without the links. So if you see over here, we have, let's see, it was Governor of California. I'm just going to copy this link address. And so when you're in here, you basically just select the word, and this works in many of the text blocks. And then you just put your link right in here, and then we press enter, and now we've got the link. The other thing, let me bring back over the typography, because there's an additional one here that we didn't see when we were looking at the heading, and that is drop caps. I know these get used a lot in print, but if you did have a paragraph that you, at the beginning of your article, and you really wanted a drop cap to kind of give that magazine look or whatever, you just hit that. There's not a lot of settings here. It basically will just take up 4 lines, and there you go. But if you did want to create something like that, that's available in the paragraph block. Okay, and once again, all these are exactly the same. Okay, let me make sure we've got no questions or anything. Cool. All right, I'm going to keep kind of moving through just the basics of these blocks, so then we can come back and start combining them in fun ways. All right, so let's take a look at the list block. And I was over here in Gemini and asked it for some 20th century American novels. So I'm just going to copy this right out of its response and use that for my my list. Now, since that was actually, if we can come back over here, as you notice, there's some bullets over here. And I'm going to guess that this is going to just format directly as a list when I paste it in. No, it's not. Okay, perfect. That gives me the excuse to show you how to change a paragraph into a list. So it just came in as a single paragraph, and we see each of these bolds is where we kind of want to have a list item. So what I'm going to do is take the paragraph, hit the transform button on the paragraph icon, and I want to change this to a list. Now, what it's going to do is, since it was a single paragraph, it doesn't know that these are individual list items yet. So what I'm going to do is actually just come in here. I'm going to point out that the list has been added, and there's just the one list item with that single paragraph. But if I click just below where I want to want the next list item to be, I'm just going to hit enter. Okay, what that's going to do, it's going to create a new list item starting with Sister Carrie, and then everything else is just going to be in that list item. And then we can proceed to go through the rest of these. And now we've got our list. So basically just copying a paragraph of stuff, transforming it into a list, and then we can then add our demarcations, our breakup to make the individual list items. Okay. Right. So once again, the typography settings, and first thing actually I need to point this out is the list block is a container block, kind of like we've looked at gallery blocks and things like that when we were dealing with images. This is a list block that, instead of holding like paragraph blocks or something, these are very specific list item blocks because they need to be able to have you know, some meaning to the containing block. Such as, let's take a quick peek here. Right now we're looking at an unordered list with the bullets, but here I have the list container block selected, and this is where you would change this if you wanted to a numbered list. And as soon as you do that, you get some style options. So you can use numbers or letters or Roman numerals for this case, that kind of thing. I'm going to leave it at numbers. Let's say we wanted to break this list up. If I click enter a couple of times, the first time it created the list item, I hit enter again, and it broke the list completely, created a new block. But now, as you see, these numbers are now starting at over. So if you did want to do that, to have a break here, and let's say have a big image or something like that, but you wanted to restart the same list, you would come up to the same the second list that it just created, and this is where you would just put 3 in, and then the list will start after the break with the numbering that you would set up. So that's one cool thing. And the other way of let's say knitting these back together, if I just select the list item that's number 3 and I just hit backspace, it changes it to a paragraph. And then if I hit backspace again, because there's a list just above this paragraph block, it will suck it right into that list container and change it over to a list item back to the way it was before. So you can break or unbreak just by hitting well, in this case, it's not gonna break that time, is it? Oh, that's funny. Oh, okay. Well, that's a different type of behavior. Okay, but that's all right. You can always just copy this and transfer it back out. That's interesting. I think because I had it as a paragraph and I went backwards, knitting it together, it only kind of lets you do that once. So something to keep in mind. And let's see, the other thing we can look at here is, for some reason, if you wanted to reverse the order and have it as a countdown list, or let's say you've got like some awards thing or something like that, if you needed to reverse the order, you can do that here. The other thing I wanted to point out is when you're on the list block itself, you've got these settings. And then when you're in the list item, basically you just can do the text color, and you've got the typography options. So it's a little less. You don't do the background color for an individual list item. You can set that in over here in the styles for the list container block itself. And it also has a text setting. So if you set the text color here, it's going to trickle down into all of the list items below. So that may be why you would want to change the text color here. But let's say if for some reason you wanted to highlight just this sister carry one, you can come in here and select just one of the list items, and it will have the color while the others remain at the default. Okay, let's see. I think, yeah, this is it. This is basically everything for the list. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Okay. And oh, yes, list levels. Sorry, oh, glad I have my notes there. So in the floating toolbar, you've got your list container and then the list items. Now, obviously, you wouldn't nest this list because all of these are, top level items, but this is how you would do it. You basically just click into the text or select the list item, and these two icons right here are the ones that move the list level in or out. Outdent and indent is the way they do that. And also, if I come back up here to the bullet list, you can see how that works there. It basically if it's a number or a bullet, the list item here isn't going to have just the clear bullet. In this case, it doesn't do like 1AB and stuff like that. Unless there's, oh, I see what it's doing. Ah, you can do it that way. Okay, I hadn't actually tested this. So, hey, why don't we discover something together? So, what it did, and I didn't even notice. Let me undo this. I didn't notice this when I was playing with this before. When you select a list item and you indent it, check out what happens. It actually makes this a nested list. It creates a new list container and then the new list item, which means you have the same controls over this new embedded list container. So when I said you didn't have access to the alphanumerics, I was incorrect there. It's just you have to kind of set it up manually. So we need to come in here, and since this is a nested one, this is why you have these cool this is one use for these other cool options, is now you can get, let's use those lowercase. So this is where you would get the 1 to 1A. Forgive me, I completely forgot about how I had built that. So just to recap on how that worked, you have your normal list, and then if you indent a list level, it's going to create a new list container with that item in it. Then you can select the new list container, change that over to our ordered, and then we'll change it to lowercase letters. And see, as you see, this is where the starting value is also very important. Is you're not going to, I'm curious if I can start it at B. Now, okay, so that's numerical. That's good to know. So in this case, House of Mirth, if you wanted to A, that's cool. So it's going to be the first one. And then if we, I'm just going to copy this. And if we just hit return, it's going to stay at the same list level, and that'll give you the B. And then now if we outdent this to move it back up, there we go. It converts it back to a list item at these levels and gives you back into the flow of the numbers. These can be kind of funky, but I just kind of wanted to go through different ways of getting this. And, as you click on the list items, you can move them in and out. But remember that these list item these list containers here, the difference between the list item and the list container. The list containers are the ones that have the options for the type of lists and also the styling of how those lists are going to appear. Okay, I think that got that wrapped up. All right, glad I double checked on that one. Okay. We just touched on the order. You see, I actually had a couple slides here, so I would have caught this on for myself. Okay, tables. Fun, fun, fun. Now, tables on the web are not they're good if you really want a table. If you can achieve the effect you're looking for through grids or columns, I would normally recommend using those because the number of columns can adjust and all that kind of stuff. But when you're dealing with a table that's like database, so let me just come over here to Google Sheets, and I've basically got the selection of items in a table format that was from that same list I got from Gemini. So as you can tell, you've got like these are associated. So if you wanted a list, it would basically be a list would be each row of the table, but you would lose some of the semantic meaning of how a data table actually works. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go ahead and even select the header cells, the header row here, and I'm just going to copy this directly. And I'm going to add a heading again, just for myself. Okay, and now instead of adding any block or anything, I'm just going to paste. So anytime you see this type to choose a block, if you can just paste random anything in here, and more often than not, it'll figure out what to do with it. So let's just paste. And bingo, we have a table. Okay, so first thing, we've got our row, our header row content. But if we come over here, let's take a look and go through a couple of these settings here. So let's just toggle the fixed table widths off. You can kind of see that it's trying to give the same horizontal space as much as possible, and then it's doing the text wrap. With these, it'll compress them almost to basically whichever, however small it can get it. So Jack London is basically defining the width of this one. The years are all the same, but that kind of thing. And I would just play with this and see which one gives you better results. This is really going to depend on what's actually in the cells of the table. So I'll click that back on. Next thing we'll have is the header section. So if I hit header, what you're going to see is it's not just going to take the first row and assume it's the header. So I just included those, and it's not too tedious, but basically the way you do this is you just actually copy or cut and paste each of your header cells into the header, like the proper header section provided by the table block. And then we will now have the chance to go in here, and let's come jump to the floating toolbar real quick. And all of your table controls that you're used to are under this this edit table icon. So if I click this, this is where you have the insert and delete for your rows and columns. And in this case, I'm just going to delete the row, going to make sure I'm in that row, and then come in here and just delete that row, since I manually copied the heading stuff into that one. And then the footer section is exactly the same. It just provides you a footer label if you need it. Okay. The other things you can do here are if you select a column, and you have to do this individually. You can't just select everything here. This is some of the it's a little finicky. You can get what you need out of the table, but the styling options are somewhat limited. But if you are basically, I'm clicking on this title block or title text here, and if you this icon right here is the change column alignment. So if you wanted your data in this case to all be done centered, you can. However, if I select these two and try to do the same thing, it doesn't work. So it'll only let you do one column at a time. So just keep an eye out for that one. So I'm just going to go ahead and center these. Okay. And this alignment here is for the entire table itself. And right now we're gonna, I guess we can, if you align that left, it's not interacting with anything. And more often than not, you're gonna see tables that are wide and have a certain number of columns, and you don't really want to have the table sharing horizontal space with other content, to make sure that as long as the table has enough space to expand into the content it has, it won't scroll. But often what you'll run into, if you have a table that has like 20 columns, there's no way those 20 columns are actually going to be able to be displayed all at once on the website. So you'll end up with having a horizontal scroll bar at the bottom to basically scroll from left to right through this. There are ways to avoid that with some sizing and things, but that's just that's just the nature of tables in general. Okay, so And just to emphasize this, if we come over here and look and I click on this, the table is one block. It's a monolith. There's nothing that you have access to inside of it without actually just going through and clicking. And then you have, your normal inline options and things like that. So let's say if you wanted to put an image into a table, this is a good place where an inline block would be super handy. So if I actually, let's just even add, let's insert a column before, and let's just say this would be the book cover. Now I don't have the Wizard of Oz book cover on hand right now, but what I can show you is with the text selected in the table cell, come in here and we'll grab our inline image, and I'm going to use that same little small guy here again. And we just select that. And now, and then since this is basically just treating it like text, we can center this column. And so this is how you would insert images into a table. You can't put them in with an image block because the table is its own block. It doesn't want to have to deal with anybody else. So it just kind of does everything on its own. But you can get a block in here, and let's see. Yeah. And once again, you still, when you click on the image, if you were building this as a table, you probably want these all to be the same. And so if for some reason you had varying size images and stuff like that, you could get them in place, or you could plan ahead a little bit and resize the images for the use in the table, get them the right aspect ratio, make them square, however you want to do that there, and make those available. All right, so that is a little bit on tables. Let's make sure I'm touching on things here. Talked about cell width. Let's go look at the style tab here. I kind of jumped ahead on the inline image, but that's okay because that's part of the data that you want to have in your table. So this is how you can get data in and out that way. But let's take a look at the styles. I said this is somewhat limited, and well, it is. You don't have access to any of the borders or anything. You basically have a default, which is this, has borders around all the cells. We've got some bold up here, things like that. And then the only other option is stripes, where it gets rid of like the borders between the rows and most of the columns, just give you the header delineation, but it does give you this cool alternating color scheme, which I find actually usually looks pretty nice. But depending on what you're looking for, this is going to be your most common thing. Now, if you are like really needing to use a table and you really want to do some styling with it, we can do that. It's outside of the scope a little bit, but you can do some things with custom CSS and things like that. But as I said, want to get you basically set up. If you need a table, we can get a table in here. And the other things that are available here is if you did want to do a background, you can see this is the background of the interior of the table. The header stays still apart from itself. And as with the other ones, you can use gradients for all of these and all that. And if you want to get rid of it, you just hit clear. But you don't have access. That's why the stripes is here, because you don't have access. You can't click on can't just click in a row here and set just the background for this row or something like that. That we don't have access, at least with the core table, the core WordPress plugin that's providing this core block. We can't quite go that far with the tables. But we can through other means that are, as I said, a little beyond the scope of our talk today. Okay. All right. So just to keep things moving so I can include all the blocks that I wanted to talk about, let's move on to, I'll go ahead and create another heading for myself, and this will be the details block. All right, so I'm just going to add this. So when you have this blank one here, instead of copying something in, I've been hitting the / to get to access to the little quick thing here, and then we'll just type details. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to create a details block. I'm going to even twirl this down so we can see what's in there. So we've got the details, and then it's got a paragraph inside the details. So if you see it now, instead of type to add a block. This says type to add a hidden block. Because what happens is when you click on this arrow, when this is out, the arrow will hide or show anything that's inside of this. So let's actually come back to maybe let's go grab a bit of that list content again. We'll stick with Wizard of Oz. So I'm actually going to just paste this in, and this is just our paragraph. And I'll use, let me come back up here and use this text up here for our summary text. Okay. And as I click away, you see it hides, and then you click back on it and it shows up. Once it's, let's actually go take a look at this in a new tab preview so you can see it on the page and the way you interact with it. And technically, so you could use a series of these detail blocks to kind of create like a fact section where you'd have the question and then you'd click on the arrow to twirl down the answer. That's one place where this is used a lot. But yeah, as you see, it just gives you this this little summary with the arrow letting you know you can twirl it down, and you don't have to click on the arrow. It's just pretty much anywhere here, and you click on that and it will display whatever content was beneath that, and then you click on it again and it hides it, very much like an accordion. However, I do want you to notice that you can add more things. This detail block is yet again another container. So let's actually grab an image here. And this time I'll grab something a little larger. Let's pretend that that this guy is L. Frank Baum. And of course he's not, but that's okay. And I'm actually going to drag this right in the list view. I'm going to drag the image into the details block. Okay. And now I can do some of this stuff I usually did. We went over with the in the image blocks before, but what I'm going to do is bring this down to medium size, and we'll even add a right align. Sorry, I clicked left there. Actually, I think that works pretty nicely too. See, so right now we've got the picture and this text blurb. So let's come back over to the preview again. This will take just a quick second to render. So I can show you that this actually does provide pretty close. It's not exactly an accordion because everything is separate. They're not a big block. But as you see, you can put all kinds of things in the details block. So this can be a very handy block when you need to maybe have content that you want to have the user or the reader be able to toggle the display of. I find this one to be pretty handy if you need something like this without having to go in and use a more complicated block for what you're trying to achieve. And we'll kind of take a quick little look here at some of the settings. So you can have this, as you noticed in the preview, it was closed by default. If you'd like to have, let's say you have a series of these and you want the first one to be open by default, that's kind of also the way like the tabs and accordion style layouts work. You usually have the first one open. So if you want to take advantage of that, there's the setting for that right here. And then under the styles, once again, this is fairly limited in what you can do, kind of like the other list or text blocks, is you can work with your text color, and let's also see what the background is. So in this case, let's see what that looks like. I hadn't actually played around with that to see if you put a bunch of fun content in there and then add a background to just the details block, if it's gonna overflow the block. And also we can see that, you remember I did the toggle to have it open by default. So we'll see that in action here too. Okay, yeah. Oh, and I didn't change the text. This is good to know. So when I was doing the style here, this is just the style for basically, I'm guessing, I wonder if I even put a second paragraph in here. I'm not sure if it'll let me. Yeah, okay, yeah. So if we do a second paragraph, it looks like the background it's ignoring the image size. It's just setting the background color for the content of the text content of the details block. This is fun. I've played around with these so much. I'm still like finding these little things. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this is as good of any place to actually look at using a different block. So let's say we wanted to have this to be have a background color. I'm going to get rid of it on the details level. So I'm going to hit that reset. And so what another thing you can do, we looked at transforming blocks from one type into another. The other thing you can do is also group blocks. So even though this details block is just a group, or I can convert it to a group, nothing's going to change. You just see the group now has the details and everything is all in here. And so now I could add a color to the group. And let's see if that's going to change. I may need to add a cover to this. We looked at cover blocks a good bit in the last the last webinar. Actually, I think that is probably the better way of doing this. So if you select a group, and then you can, once it's changed to a group, so you go from details, and then you wrap the details in a group, and then you can select the group, and you can then add the group to one of these other fun ones. And as you see, even with the preview, it kind of shows you this is the one you want to use if you want a background color for this entire design. So I'm kind of like running into the limitations of styling the details, and I'm showing you a way of working around that. So if we twirl this down, here we go. We've got the group and the details is still there, but now we have a full cover. And what the cover allows you to do is adjust the height, and also the cover is going to take into account the size of the image as well. So let's now take a preview on that one. There we go. So now, and if we, oh, okay. And now you learn how the other part works. I didn't put the cover uh, to start from the top. Now, this was covered in a lot of the, no pun intended, but what was happening here is you can actually change where the content starts, and we want it to start from the top. And actually, I'm gonna pull this down. You're gonna think this is weird, but I'm gonna set the cover size to be a bit smaller, like smaller than the content, and I want to see if it will just grow depending on if the details block is open or not. Forgive me for on-stream experimentation, but this is kind of how I've been learning these, and you just kind of have to use the items and find out where the edge cases are, and I'm going to give you as many tools as I can to help you kind of work through those. There you go. So let's go back and I'll talk through what I just did again. So when you have a cover block, you can set the kind of the minimum height of the cover block. So what I want to do is I want to set it super small, so it will be as small as possible unless there's stuff being displayed in it. And that's what is allowing this to be this small size when the details is closed, and it'll expand to all encompass everything when the details is open. That is the solution to that little problem we were running into. Okay. All right, let's pop back over here, because that's pretty much what you do with the details block. You can put a bunch of stuff in there, and if you do put a bunch of weird stuff in there, you may have to fiddle with it to get the layout and everything to work. But if you're just having like a fact section where you have the question and you twirl down to read the answer, super simple to do something like that. Okay, we gotta do a quick time check here. Good. All right. Excellent. As you see, I made an example of a quote of the day, but I just showed you a different one. But it's basically the same thing. I actually put a quote block inside the details block to create this little Einstein design. Okay, let's see. Buttons. Buttons are big. Buttons are big. Let's see. Yeah, we can, I think we can, I got enough time to introduce the buttons, but not I probably won't be able to get into as much detail as I might have, but we can get ourselves started here. All right, so I'm going to hit the slash and buttons. Now, and this is going to be a little confusing because it's kind of like the lists. So if I add a buttons plural, it adds a buttons plural container block with an individual button in it. So this is very similar to the list, where you've got the list and the list items. And so some styling and settings happen at the buttons container level, and then obviously the majority of your button styling, your text and adding links and all those kind of things are going to be on the button itself. Okay. So, that's going to make me laugh. So if you select the button container, there's a little plus over here where you can add additional buttons. And then you click on an individual button and we can have about, whoops, don't hit tab. That doesn't go to the next button. Contact, these kind of things. These are your kind of the standard button types. And you can say, let's say I want the about button to be 50%. This is in the initial settings. This is for an individual button, not the container. We're at the individual button level. And you can say, I want this one to be 50%. I know I'm going to just have 2 buttons, so they can just be 50-50. That kind of fun thing there. We can come into the styles. So buttons, this is where you can get a little more exciting with the style. You can have a filled button or a outline button. Once again, this is per button. If you come up to the buttons tab, there you can't like select them all as outline or all as filled in the container itself. You kind of need to do those on the individual buttons. But one thing you could do with that is if you style, let's do it this way. I'm going to delete the second button, and if you style the first one the way you want it, let's go outline background of blue with white text. Oh, and that's a perfect thing. I'm glad I did that. The border color when you're using outline is the same as the text color. So you see how it disappeared on me? So if I come back up to the buttons container, we can put a background on that. There you go. So now you can see that you've got a white border, white text, and then the blue background. That's how this button is being styled. If it goes to fill, it's just blue, goes to outline, that kind of deal there. And then you've got down here at these are the same typography settings as we had before. But you also have the border radius. So you can make this a more squared or make it much more curved. And if you click this little link button, you can unlink the radii. And so let's say you only wanted to put 0 on the bottom left and the bottom right. And now you can, let's say we'll move this to 10 pixels. You can have all kinds of, or actually even zeros. So you can have like a cool, top radius tag or something kind of shape for your button. Those can be kind of fun to use there. And then what I would do is you can come to the 3-dot menu and you just duplicate this guy. That way it'll have the exact same settings. And now you can just update the text. And then, as we noticed before, you can add your links here. So this will be linked to your about page, etc. Let's see. We've got coming back to the container. This, if you remember from a previous, this is very similar to some of our rows. No, the buttons cannot act like tabs. These are just links to other content. You could make the link to a different part of the page, but a tab has to be able to hide and show things, and that takes JavaScript. That's why we're not talking about any of the blocks that do that kind of stuff, because there's usually some kind of scripting that's going into the background that then when you click a tab that's hidden, when you click on that, the JavaScript actually goes in and updates the page and say, okay, now this HTML is now showing, and the HTML that was on the other block is now hidden, and that's done through JavaScript. So that's why we're not necessarily demonstrating any of those more advanced blocks. There are blocks that provide that kind of functionality, but not at kind of the core level. The details block was the closest one that had any kind of functionality like that. Yeah, I know this looks like a really cool way to make tabs though. So I absolutely see where your question was coming from there. But back to these guys here. So the button containers, come back to the button container. So this container behaves a lot like a row container. And the row container allows you to change orientation. So they can flow from left to right, or you can make a stack. And then you have these justification settings. So right now we have everything to the left. You can let me actually come and make these buttons a little smaller. It'll be easier to see this. So let me make these back to 25%. And so the justification here, you can center. So however many buttons, they'll just all fall into the center, or you can have them over to the right, or the real fun one, and this is called space between, and that is basically going to kind of center them and have the space. So if we had, let's add another, you can see how it basically just spreads everything out, justifies it across the whole width, and then just gives you equidistant spacing between them to add to make the float look that way. If you're looking for something along those lines, otherwise, you know, your justify item center will just keep them centered in the middle. And there is vertical alignment. So let's make some more. Oh, I'm sorry, that was on the button itself. Here, there is vertical alignment here. So if we add a few more buttons. Let's come back up here. So we've got this toggle to allow wrap multiple lines. So once it kind of gets to a default width, it'll depend on how it's being displayed. It will do that. It will wrap onto the next line, but it doesn't give you any options for how many. It just kind of based upon the size. Okay, so those are, and this is at the container level. If we come down to an individual button, we also have alignment. So we've got the justify item center. So this is basically a copy of the container level setting. But these, let's see. I think this is, okay, yeah, all right, that makes sense. Okay, so for whatever reason, and this makes sense if to just for ease of use, these are the same, these are operating on the container level. I couldn't remember if these were somehow helping with the content of the buttons, but no, these are basically going to be working on the items itself as if you were on the container level of that. Okay. And the other thing, and once again, this is another place where an inline image might be helpful. You know, if you have a button and you want to have a graphic on your button, this is how you do it. You know, you just put it as an inline image and it'll just live up there. And then you can come in here and let's make this, you know, 32 pixels this time, make it a little smaller so you can have it just to the left, put a little space in there. It operates, you know, very much like a piece of text. There we go. Yes. Okay. So this vertical alignment is the aligning of the text in here. One thing I will note about these inline images is you can't really change the vertical. So you wouldn't be able to center the about text, like have the house move down or anything like that without some extra fun in there. But if you were just going to use it, either you could even use it by itself. You know, just get rid of the. I think, can I just get rid of the text altogether? Yeah, get rid of the text altogether. But of course, then you lose the link option because the inline images don't allow you to add links to those. So in this case, you would just do a shift enter, and then you would add your link to the text here. Okay. All right. Let's see if I had anything else here. And so we've got our text, our width settings. We talked about our stylings, a little bit of the justification stuff. I demonstrated the fun border radius that you can use for some design choices. Okay. All right. So we are running towards the end of time. And I'm just going to add these last blocks in here. So classic is just called a classic. And if you check this out, this is the classic editor in a single block. And let's even put a little bit of, let's see, let's just put a little bit of stuff in here. Classic. And you just paste it in. And it's all in here. And so you can use this as you need. Or if you, let's say you were pasting this in, or this came from another document, you can convert from a classic block, an individual classic block, and you see how this has 2 paragraphs in it. And if you convert this to blocks, it's going to separate those out into their own paragraph blocks. That's one of the cool things to note about the classic block. And then we'll do custom HTML. This is basically all you need to know about here is it's got the this is where you add the HTML. So I could just do hello world. Sorry for any developers in the audience. Okay. And then the preview is hello world. And at the very, it's not taken on anything. It's super, super like Cody. But if you had something like let me see if I have a spot for that. I was trying to come up with a real quick embed, but I don't have one at hand right now. Actually, let's we were looking at this for a customer. Here you get the like you can get the code here for like a Bible verse of the day. It's going to be just an iframe, and that's the kind of thing that you might copy and just put into your custom HTML. And all you need to remember is it's HTML is where you put in the code. Preview, you can check out how it's going to look. And then what's fun about these is you can also put these in groups. You can put them in rows, put backgrounds and all this kind of stuff on them. And so if we hit preview, you can this custom HTML block can still interact and do all the fun things and lay out things with the other blocks and all that. Yeah, that was a lot of blocks to go through. And maybe what we can do is another follow-up where we, now that we've kind of done all of the basic building. So this is the block editor basics, going through all the basic settings of a bunch of the different common blocks. Maybe for our next webinar. Yes, you could. Well, actually, there is a block for shortcodes, so I would recommend using that. There actually is a shortcode block specific here. So if you had a shortcode from from a form, thank you, Vera. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. So if you've got like a form or something, or our new weather widget can be placed using shortcodes and things like that. There's actually a shortcode widget where you would put that in there and it would display that just like if you were using anywhere else. In the classic editor, I know a lot of people would use shortcodes to put the a form in the classic editor, and in the block editor, you can simply just use the shortcode block and that will take care of that for you. Excellent. I didn't include that in my list, so a little extra add-on there, and it flows in really nice with the custom HTML and the embed kind of things. If you have your favorite Sudoku online puzzle and they offer an embed, you can use those types of things in here as well. Okay. So I think we're right on an hour. I appreciate you guys all being here. If you want to toss any final comments or questions in there, I can address them in the final minute or two before we sign off. But once again, I just appreciate your attention, your time, your interest. You're coming out and hanging out with me, watching, clicking through, learning a few new things myself while trying to pass on the knowledge. So just once again, I want to thank everybody, and we'll be putting this together into a YouTube video with all the bunch of chapters. You can skip around. You can share it with some of your fellow colleagues, and we'll also have this available on our YouTube channel proper. And there'll also be I'll put the video, and I've been even trying to put the slide deck and the associated blog post that goes with this on our OHT site. So we'll be in touch with those either a little later today or definitely first thing on Monday. We'll get you these